The unexpected encounter. The spaceport cafe was alive with noise, glowing lights, and the mixed voices of many species. Starships landed outside every few minutes, shaking the glass walls with their thunder. Inside, humans sat beside tall reptilian, traders, small insectoid workers, and other strange travelers who had come from distant systems. Among all the chaos, one man stood out, not because he was rich or strong or famous, but because he looked so simple. His clothes were plain, his hands rough from hard work, and his tired eyes showed a life full of struggle. This man's name was not known to the galaxy. To everyone around, he was just another worker passing through, someone who had no power and no story. Yet tonight fate was watching him closely. At a corner table, an alien woman sat alone. Her face was hidden under the hood of a silver cloak, her skin faintly glowing under the cafe's soft lights. She looked restless, her eyes darting from person to person, as if afraid of being seen. In her hand was a small translator device, which trembled slightly as she tried to speak into it. She wanted to order something, a hot drink, something simple, but when she reached for her pouch, her expression froze. It was empty, no credits, no local currency. She lowered her gaze, embarrassed. A soft sigh escaped her lips, filled with a loneliness that even the loud cafe could not hide. The human worker watched from across the room. He noticed the way she hesitated, the way her glowing fingers tightened nervously on the empty pouch. For a moment, he thought about ignoring it. After all, who was he to get involved? He had his own problems. But then, without thinking too much, he stood and walked toward her. The alien woman looked up as he approached. Her eyes were striking, shining like twin stars, filled with something more than sadness, something hidden, deep and heavy. "You need help?" the man asked softly. His voice was calm, respectful. She hesitated, as if unsure how to answer. Her translator clicked and hummed before her words came out in broken English. "I cannot pay," she whispered, her cheeks flushing with quiet shame. The man nodded, then smiled in a way that was both kind and simple. He turned to the server and placed a few credits on the counter. "One hot drink for her," he said, "and make it extra warm." The alien woman's lips parted in surprise. She stared at him as if he had just broken a rule she had always believed in. Nobody helped strangers in this galaxy without a reason. Nobody gave without expecting something in return. Yet here was a human man, a poor one at that, paying for her drink with no demand, no questions. The steaming cup was placed before her. She wrapped her delicate hands around it, the warmth seeping into her trembling fingers. For the first time that night, her breathing calmed. She looked at the man again, her eyes unblinking. "Why?" she asked simply. The human shrugged. "You looked like you needed it. That's all." Her chest tightened at his words. Such honesty, such simplicity. It felt almost alien to her, though she was the true alien here. She studied him carefully. The rough lines on his hands, the weariness in his face, the quiet strength in his eyes. He had nothing to gain from her. He didn't even know her name. Slowly, she lowered her hood. For a brief second, her true appearance was revealed. Silver blue skin that shimmered like starlight, hair that fell like flowing metal, and markings across her forehead that glowed faintly with royal heritage. Several customers in the cafe gasped, whispering among themselves. But the human man did not react in awe nor in fear. He simply smiled again, as if she was no different from anyone else. That smile hit her harder than any blade could. She had lived her whole life surrounded by people who only bowed to her wealth, her power, her name. Never once had someone treated her as just a person. The human turned to leave, perhaps believing his part was done. But before he could take another step, her voice stopped him. It was soft, almost trembling. "You don't know who I am," she said. He paused, glancing back at her. "No," he admitted, "and I don't need to." Her breath caught in her throat. For the first time in years, she felt seen not as a billionaire, not as an heiress, but as someone fragile, someone real. and that scared her more than any enemy chasing her across the stars. As the cafe lights flickered and a distant alarm echoed from the docking bays, the alien woman tightened her grip on the hot drink. Her heart pounded. She realized this ordinary human man might just be the one thing her empire, and her future, needed most. But he had no idea. No idea that his small act of kindness had just set in motion a chain of events that would shake the galaxy. The billionaire's secret. The cafe grew quiet again after the alarms outside faded, but the alien woman's mind was louder than ever. She held the hot drink close to her lips, though she hardly tasted it. Her eyes never left the human who had returned to his seat across the room. He looked so ordinary, yet something about him disturbed her world more than any royal council or rival empire ever could. She whispered to herself, "Why would a man with nothing give so freely?" Her voice trembled as if she feared the answer. For most beings in the galaxy, wealth was power and power was survival. Kindness without reason was a weakness. That was what she had been taught since childhood. Yet here she was, shaken. Because one human had broken that rule with nothing more than a cup of hot drink. The hood of her cloak slid lower as she thought of the empire waiting for her. An empire drowning in politics and greed. Entire corporations waited for her failure. Every noble family wanted her downfall. And all because of one cruel truth. She had no heir. In her culture, lineage meant everything. Without a bloodline to continue her dynasty, her fortune, billions of credits, fleets of ships, worlds under her command, would be torn apart by predators hiding behind polite smiles. Enemies were already circling like vultures, waiting for the day she was declared unfit to rule. Her chest tightened. She had traveled in secret, away from her bodyguards, away from her golden cage, searching for something, searching for someone. But she had expected to find only liars, thieves, and greedy faces. Not him. Not a man who looked at her as though she were nothing special, and in that very moment made her feel more alive than all the riches in her vaults. The human glanced toward her again. His eyes were tired but not cold, curious but not invasive. She felt her heartbeat quicken. For years, no one had looked at her without the weight of her title pressing between them. She lowered her drink slowly and stood. Her cloak brushed the floor as she crossed the room. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if she were walking toward a decision that would change everything. She stopped at his table. "May I sit?" she asked softly. He nodded, moving his half-empty cup aside. She slid into the seat opposite him. For a long moment they sat in silence. "You didn't have to help me," she said at last, her voice steady but low. "I know," the human replied. "But sometimes doing the right thing doesn't need a reason." His words pierced deeper than he could ever understand. She wanted to tell him everything, her name, her empire, her fears. But she held back. Trust was dangerous, trust could kill. And yet something inside whispered that this man was different. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Do you always help strangers?" He shook his head. "No, just the ones who look like they need it." For the first time in many years, a small, real smile touched her lips. But before she could speak again, the door to the cafe slid open. A pair of armored guards entered, scanning the crowd with sharp, metallic eyes. Her heart skipped. She recognized the emblem on their armor. It belonged to the rival faction that wanted her captured. She quickly pulled her hood back up, lowering her face. The human noticed her sudden shift. "Are you okay?" he whispered. Her hands trembled, under the table. "No," she breathed. "I am not." The guards moved slowly, their gaze sweeping across the tables. She felt their presence like cold steel pressing against her skin. Panic burned in her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. The human leaned closer. Who were they looking for? Her lips parted, but the words caught in her throat. She wanted to tell him the truth, but saying it aloud could mean his death too. Instead, she whispered something that made his eyes widen. "They are looking for me." He frowned, confusion flashing across his face. Why? She hesitated, her eyes locked on his. Finally, she said it. The truth she had hidden from everyone. Because I am not just a stranger. I am heir to one of the richest empires in this galaxy, and they will do anything to stop me. The human stared at her, stunned. For him, this was unbelievable. The woman sitting in front of him, dressed so plainly, drinking a cup he paid for, was worth more than all the fleets and planets he had ever heard about. But before he could reply, one of the guards turned sharply in their direction. Her eyes widened. She grabbed his hand under the table and whispered fiercely, "Do not let go. If they find me, both of us are finished." The human's heart pounded as he realized the truth. The small act of kindness he thought was nothing had pulled him into a dangerous game of power, wealth, and survival. The guards began to walk toward their table, and in that instant, the human understood. Whatever secret this alien woman carried, it was about to drag him into a storm far greater than he had ever known. A dangerous offer. The guard's heavy boots echoed across the cafe floor, each step sharp like a countdown to disaster. The alien woman kept her hood low, but her glowing skin betrayed her presence. The human could feel her hand trembling in his grip beneath the table. "Stay calm," he whispered, though his own heart thundered in his chest. The guards scanned the tables, their helmets glowing with scanners that flickered red as they passed over faces. When they reached the couple, the human leaned forward, blocking her. From their view as much as possible. "You two," one of the guards barked. "Show your ident chips." The human's throat tightened. He pulled out his worker's ID, scratched and half-faded from years of use. The guard took it, scanned it, and gave a dismissive grunt. Then the helmeted gaze turned toward her. Her hood remained down, her hands tightening around the cup. For one terrifying second, the human thought she would be exposed. But then she pushed forward a fake ID, her movement smooth but her voice faint. "Visitor permit," she murmured. The guard scanned it. A red light blinked. Suspicion flared in his robotic gaze. But just as his scanner beeped again, an announcement crackled over the station's intercom. "Docking Bay 3. Fire alarm. All security units report immediately." The guards cursed under their breath, returning the IDs. "You're lucky," one growled. "We'll be back." Then they stormed out. The human let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. She, however, did not relax. Her eyes followed the guards until they were gone, then she whispered, "They will not stop. They will follow until I am caught." He frowned. "Why are they chasing you? You said you were important. But why?" Her lips pressed tightly. Then, after a long silence, she looked straight into his eyes. "Because I am not just important. I am the last heir of my family's empire. If they capture me, the dynasty collapses. And if the dynasty collapses, billions will suffer." The human stared at her, the weight of her words sinking into him. Billions, empires, dynasties. He was just a poor worker who barely managed to pay rent. And yet here was a woman whose very existence shaped the future of galaxies. She studied his silence, then with a voice that trembled between hope and fear, she said, "You helped me when no one else would, and now, I must ask something greater of you." His brows furrowed. "What?" She leaned closer, lowering her hood enough for her glowing eyes to meet his. "Protect me, stay with me, help me escape my enemies. In return, I can give you everything. Wealth, ships, power beyond anything you have ever imagined." The human froze. Her offer was unbelievable, almost absurd. Him? Protect her? He was just an ordinary man with no training, no weapons, no influence, yet her gaze was deadly serious. I think you've mistaken me for someone else," he said slowly. "No," she replied sharply. "I have met kings, generals, and soldiers. They all wanted my wealth, my throne, my body as a tool. You wanted nothing. That is why you are the one I need." Her words cut deeper than he expected. For years he had been invisible to the galaxy, just another face in the crowd. But in this woman's eyes he was suddenly something more. Still he shook his head. I don't know how to fight mercenaries. I don't know how to protect someone like you. Her lips curled into a faint, sad smile. Then you will learn. Before he could respond, a shadow passed over the cafe window. Outside, a sleek, black ship hovered near the docking bay. Its hull was marked with the same emblem as the guards. The enemy had returned, and this time, they had brought reinforcements. The alien woman's eyes widened. She stood quickly, pulling him with her. We must leave now. He stumbled to his feet. Where? To the old cargo tunnels, she said urgently. I know a way out. The cafe doors burst open again. Mercenaries in dark armor stormed. Inside, weapons raised. Panic erupted as customers screamed and scattered. The human felt his blood run cold. She gripped his hand tighter. If you stay, you die. If you come with me, your life will never be the same. For a split second, he hesitated. His entire life had been about staying unnoticed, surviving quietly, but as the mercenaries locked their eyes on them, he realized he had no choice. Fine, he muttered, pulling her toward the back exit. Blaster fire lit up the cafe, shattering tables and glass. They sprinted into the dark service corridors, alarms blaring all around them. His lungs burned, his legs ached, but he did not let go of her hand. The woman glanced at him, her face a storm of fear and determination. I told you I needed someone. Now. It begins. Behind them, armored footsteps thundered closer. The hunt had begun. Trust tested in the shadows, the tunnels beneath the spaceport were dark and endless, filled with the smell of rust and old fuel. Broken lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows on the walls. The human ran beside the alien woman, their footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Behind them, the metallic stomp of armored boots drew closer. Keep running, she urged, her breath sharp. He stumbled slightly but tightened his grip on her hand. His chest burned, but something inside pushed him forward. Maybe fear, maybe adrenaline, maybe something deeper he could not name. They turned a corner, and blaster fire exploded behind them. Sparks rained down as the walls lit up with scorching marks. The human ducked instinctively, pulling her against the wall. They won't stop, she whispered, her eyes blazing with panic. They will hunt until one of us falls. He glanced at her, surprised by her raw honesty. Then we make sure it's not us. She studied him for a heartbeat. His words were simple, yet they carried a strength she hadn't expected. For a man who claimed to be ordinary, there was something unshakable in his tone. They pressed deeper into the tunnels until they reached an abandoned cargo chamber. Broken crates were stacked against the walls, dust swirling in the stale air. It was quiet for now, but both knew it would not last. The human leaned against a crate, catching his breath. So, he said between gulps of air, you're a billionaire heiress, and your enemies are mercenaries. And me? I'm just a worker. What exactly do you expect me to do? She pulled down her hood, her glowing face illuminated in the dim light. I expect you to survive. And if you stay by me, I will make sure you do. Her voice carried both command and desperation. She was powerful, but she was also vulnerable, trapped between duty and fear. Before he could respond, the sound of boots echoed again. The mercenaries were closing in. Hide, he whispered, pushing her behind a stack of crates. He picked up a broken metal rod from the floor, gripping it tightly. His palms sweated, but he forced himself to stand tall. The door creaked open and two mercenaries stepped in, weapons raised. Their armor gleamed black, visors glowing crimson. They swept the chamber with cold precision. The human's heartbeat pounded in his ears. He was no soldier. One wrong move and he'd be dead. But as the mercenaries approached, something primal surged inside him, a fire he didn't know existed. When the first mercenary turned his back, the human lunged. He slammed the rod against the soldier's helmet with all his strength. The mercenary staggered, caught off guard. The human didn't stop. He swung again, sparks flying. The second mercenary raised his weapon, but before he could fire, A blinding flash erupted. The alien woman had stepped out, her markings glowing fiercely. She lifted a small device from her cloak, a hidden weapon, and fired. The mercenary collapsed, armor smoking. For a moment, silence fell. Both of them stood frozen, chests heaving, eyes locked. "You," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You fought like someone who has done this before." He shook his head, trembling. "No, I just refused to lose." Something in her expression softened. For the first time, she saw not just a worker, not just a stranger, but someone who could stand beside her when even trained warriors fell. But their moment was cut short. A metallic roar filled the tunnels. The rest of the squad was coming. Many more. She rushed toward him, gripping his shoulders. "Listen to me," she said firmly, her glowing eyes burning into his. "I don't care if you think you are ordinary. Tonight you proved you are not. Stay with me and I swear the galaxy will know your name." His throat tightened. Her words carried a weight heavier than any treasure. He had lived his whole life, invisible, unwanted. And now this woman saw him as something more. The ground shook violently as an explosion tore through the tunnel. Dust and fire surged in, knocking them off their feet. The mercenaries had sealed the exits. As the smoke cleared, a dark silhouette appeared in the flames, a towering figure in black armor, far larger than the others. His voice boomed through the chamber. "Hand over the heiress, or die where you stand." The human and the alien woman locked eyes. Their choice was clear, and as the giant mercenary raised his weapon, the human tightened his grip on the broken rod. For the first time in his life, he wasn't running from fate. He was charging straight into it. The heir of two worlds. The chamber shook as the armored giant stepped through the flames. His black armor gleamed under the flickering lights, etched with scars from countless battles. His red visor glared like a predator locked onto its prey. In his hand, a massive plasma blade hissed, filling the air with sparks. The alien woman's breath caught. She knew him. He was no ordinary mercenary. He was a warlord for hire, infamous across galaxies. Entire fleets had fallen under his command. And now, he was here for her. The human stood between them, a broken metal rod clutched in his hands. His arms trembled, his legs screamed for him to run, but his heart refused to move. He wasn't just protecting her anymore. He was protecting the one chance the galaxy had left. "Step aside, human," the warlord growled, his voice like thunder. "She belongs to us." The human swallowed hard, fear clawing at his chest, but he forced the words out. "She doesn't belong to anyone." The warlord laughed, the sound cold and cruel. Brave words, and from a man who will die in seconds. Without warning, the warlord charged. The ground cracked under his weight. The human braced himself, swinging the rod with desperate strength. Sparks erupted as the rod clashed against the glowing plasma blade. The impact nearly broke his bones, but he refused to drop it. The alien woman's eyes burned with panic. She rushed forward, firing her hidden weapon. Bolts of light crashed against the warlord's armor, but they barely left a mark. He swatted, her attack aside as if it were nothing. The human staggered, almost falling. But in that moment, something inside him snapped. He was tired of being powerless, tired of being invisible, tired of a life where he meant nothing. With a roar, he pushed back harder, sparks raining like stars. For the first time, the warlord faltered, shocked by the sheer will of this ordinary man. "Impossible," the warlord hissed. The alien woman's markings glowed brighter. She stepped beside the human, placing her hand over his. Energy surged from her into the rod, turning it into a weapon blazing with light. Together they swung, and the warlord was driven to his knees. But he wasn't finished. With a furious roar, he slammed the ground, sending both of them flying back. The chamber shook, dust and debris raining from above. The human coughed, pain ripping through his body. He could barely stand. But when he saw the woman struggling to rise, something stronger than pain lifted him. He stumbled to her side, pulling her up. "You're not alone," he said firmly. Her eyes widened, shimmering with tears. For years she had carried the burden of her empire alone. Now, for the first time, someone stood with her. Not for her wealth, not for her throne, but simply because it was right. The warlord charged again, blade raised high. But this time, they were ready. The human gripped the glowing rod with all his strength, while she channeled her energy into him. Their combined strike met the warlord's attack with an explosion of light. The blast shook the entire station. When the smoke cleared, the warlord lay broken, his armor shattered, his weapon flickering uselessly. Silence filled the chamber. The human's chest heaved, his body bruised and burning. But he stood tall. The alien woman looked at him, her heart pounding not from fear but from something far greater. "You saved me," she whispered. He shook his head weakly. "No, we saved each other." Outside, alarms blared as news spread across the station. The heiress of a galactic empire had been found, alive and not alone. Word would travel fast. She had chosen her protector, a human no one had ever noticed before. But now the galaxy would notice. She stepped closer, her glowing eyes locked on his. "You don't understand what this means. By standing with me, you are no longer a worker. You are the man I choose as my partner, and the heir to my world's future." The human froze, the weight of her words sinking in. Him? A man who once counted every credit to survive, now tied to an empire worth billions. He tried to speak, but she silenced him with a look both fierce and tender. "This is bigger than us. Our worlds will never be the same, but together, we will change the galaxy." And as the chamber doors burst open, revealing both allies and enemies rushing in, the human stood at her side, no longer ordinary, no longer invisible. He was the heir of two worlds.